What's up, everyone? Welcome to Beyond the Court, episode 8. We are so happy that you're here joining us today. As you can see, we pretty much have a full squad in the building. My name is Agent P, and special welcome to Amir, Nabil, Andy, Anwar, and John. Welcome, guys. So we have a loaded podcast, an episode that we want to go over today. A couple of things that we really want to touch on is this is the anniversary or the week anniversary of the Raptors winning the championship last year. So we're going to do a bit of a Raptors playoff recap and what stood out for each of us during that run. And we're also going to talk about the current season. I know there's been discussions and the league is putting together just kind of those settings that they want to put together. So even just going around the table and understanding how we see the current season playing out alongside the playoffs and what our expectations are there as well. So how about we get this thing started off? Nabil, how do you feel about the Raptors playoff run last season? And, maybe what was a couple of things that stood out for you?
Long time coming as a fan, man. 24 years in the making. I can list a whole slew of, moments. But, for me, what really stood out was game 1 of the playoffs. Against Orlando, they lost. And it took me back to, previous years when it's like, oh, man, are we going through this again? Yeah. You thought, you traded away DeMar for a Kawhi Leonard, like a superstar type of player. This shouldn't happen. You know what I mean? So I know a lot of us, went back and were like, wow, is this like replay? But then they came back game 2, won by 19 and won 4 straight. And the rest is history. So, I mean, that really stood out for me because to me, it took me back. It took me back to the years prior. And I'm like, are we going to do this again? We're the 2nd seed in the East. Are we just going to be a regular season squad? But at the end of the day, like we won 4 straight, went on to, lift that trophy and bring the title up north. So that really stood out. And just going through the adversity, before when we used to lose, to come out from that, it'd be hard. But the way we came back and we responded to all the adversity and coming through and at the end of the day winning that championship, I think that really stood out for me from particularly their playoff championship run last year.
Definitely, man. I think I would echo the same thing. I think it wasn't just one moment throughout the whole playoffs. It was just a collective experience. There were various times where you felt like it's the same old Raptor moments, but instead of folding, the team stood strong in face of pressure. And through there were plenty of offensive heroics, obviously from Kawhi. But I think the rest of the team too, you really saw what Fred was made of, Siakam was made of, Lowry in those pressure moments. Siakam, huge, right? And then Gasol. Like, I think they were, it wasn't just like, cause Kawhi was there, obviously was a big factor, but like, you really got to see what the team was made of. And not just the team, I think, we really saw what the coaching staff can do too, right? Especially in that, Bucks series where, come on, like, 4-0, like that's ridiculous, right? Like they just came up with a defense that shut down the whole Buck squad, including Giannis. It is what it is. Like they shut him down, and we can dive into that in the next episode too. But like just the way that Coach Nurse handled that whole series was just amazing. And then that momentum carrying over to the finals, just outstanding effort by everyone. Obviously there were some injuries on the other side too there, but like. Just overall, the whole playoffs, I think it was not just one pivotal moment. It was a complete effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to touch on what Anwar just said, that one of the pieces that stood out to me was just the defense from last year to the previous year really stood out. I'm not sure if just because Kawhi was on the team and obviously he's a multiple defensive player of the year. winner. So it's just, for me, it was, you got a whole spread of players who are really top-notch defenders. Obviously Lowry was a pit bull. You got Powell, you got Pascal. All these guys are, and Danny Green even. He was really a tough defender. So you had multiple defenders that are obviously changing. They're switching. They're giving that scorer, or that either Giannis or Steph Curry at the end, a really hard time to score the basket or get the rest of the team involved. So the defense for me is what really stood out. And it's like a cliche, but defense wins. So, we got good defense. It'll win you that chip easily. So really good job with the Raptors last year, really locking down their defense.
And for me, along the same lines, defense did stand out, and I have to give it to two main people is where I give credit. Of course, Kawhi and Nick Nurse. His coaching, his strategy was just off the charts. The most pivotal play to me that stands out is the series against Philly, where the game was tied at like 90 or so, and you had 4 seconds left on the clock, and who are you going to give the ball to, right? Who's going to go and make that last shot? And I think I went back to the top of the key. He was getting chased late. And of course, Kawhi takes that shot, which everyone remembers, bouncing around the rim. Is it going to go in? I think one of the opponents on the team commented about it afterwards, being like, I remember seeing that shot, seeing it bounce around, wondering if it's going to go in. And the fact that Kawhi shot it, I knew it was going to go in. And that's the opponent. Like he recognized like Kawhi just always made it work. He came in to save it so often. I think we have to give another bit of credit to Fred VanVleet, especially in that Bucks series. He was on fire. He did ridiculously well. After that slump, everyone knows about him having his kid on the Monday night.
Shout out to his son.
Yeah.
Fred Jr. Fred Jr.
Fred Jr. made it happen. Like game 4, he was 5 of 6 on twos and 3 of 3 on threes. Like I think maybe his best career game was that game 4 versus the Bucks. And then the next game, he had similar numbers. He was doing great, shooting 80%. Game 6, same thing, 80% on twos and threes, like 5 of 6, 4 of 5, just ridiculous. And I remember watching him and being like, who is this man? Like, how is he making these shots as well as he is? I was blown away by him, to be honest. So I hope that people still give him a good amount of credit as the years go by, because we all remember Kawhi. But I hope we all remember Fred VanVleet over the years.
Yeah, he did shoot the crap out of
Nick
Warriors as well.
Right? Yeah, Nick Nurse said
him.
he had to revert to the mean, right? Because he was shooting horribly before, so he was like 1 for 25 before, and it evened out. Absolutely,
it did. Yeah, it did. Yeah, you're right. I remember he had those first 2 games. He was in a terrible slump. So, that was great for me. That's a large part of what stood out that I remember in that series. I feel like that was the harder. I shouldn't say harder, but you had a lot of close games. The Warriors series was good, but I just felt like, I don't know, I felt like the Raptors, maybe it was some of the injuries, but not to say anything against the Raptors, but I just felt like that series people were more confident about, maybe. I'm not too sure. But again, Kawhi came in, defensive settings. Clay put up his numbers before getting injured. Steph did all of his, 47-point game for Steph here. But at the end of the day, afterwards, when the injuries came through, even KD, they only had Steph, right? And like realistically, we all remember watching on the court, and like if Steph didn't have the ball, none of us thought that the Warriors had much chance. Andy, I know you're nodding your head. I can imagine you thinking that exact same thing, as we all were. So great series, great management. All around team mentality and defensive status was really what maintained it.
Okay. It was a great. I think that was one of the most fairy tale fairy tale runs you can ever think of. Like you trade away your best player, you get rid of your coach of the year, you bring in a guy who you're not even sure can play, and the run that we had was, I don't know, I've never seen anything like that ever in NBA history. The one game, the regular season game where we played Golden State, that one I'll always remember. We went double overtime against Golden State, and it was just Kawhi and Kevin Durant just going at it, just back and forth and back and forth. Everybody else played amazing as well, but it just stood out to me there. And then for the playoffs, Philly was definitely our biggest challenge in the playoffs. Philly, I think people underrated them. basically four all-stars of amazing role players, strength, size, shooters, physicality. It was good. Like, we definitely, I don't think would have got through that without Kawhi, just showing like in those clutch moments. But my favorite part, I think, was being down 0-2 in a series and then just coming back and just stomping that team, just absolutely stomping that team. I think to me, it gave me a little extra. It gave me a little extra something, because once we're down 0-2, the amount of shit that was getting talked, and nobody, like, you know what I mean? Everybody's like, oh, they're done. It's over. There's no way they'll come back. There's no way. It's over. It's the Bucks. And I'm like, no, we're the better team. And it just gave validation after that.
Shout out to Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
Stephen
It's
A.
like,
wrong.
when we were looking at those games, I'm like, this is not the Raptors. It's like, this is not how they play. Like, they're better. Like, I'm looking at them like they're the better team, but it showed out in the end.
Yeah, I think when I look at the entire run, I just feel like what Amir touched on in terms of like a fairy tale setup. It's like the Raptors were a team of destiny, almost. Like, it was just in the cards. It was just meant to be. And Nabil, you touched on it. The anxiety when that opening game in against the Magic, DJ Augustine hits that three, just completely deflates the building. And it's like, okay, is this deja vu again? You know, like, is this the same old Raptors story in terms of being able to, you know, are we just that team that loses, or is just does not have enough to make a deep playoff run? The game that stood out for me was in that Philly series versus when we were in Philly, Game 4.
Yeah.
And it's a back and forth battle, and we are scratching and clawing, and Kawhi's having to hit big shot after big shot, and then he hits a huge three right over Embiid as well. So what a pivotal moment at that time as well. So I think that was a huge moment, and then even hitting obviously the shot over in Game 7 as well, the one that just kind of like, you know, stood out as a whole. Key moments as well is like, you know, winning the championship on the road, just the 7th team to ever win 3 road games in the finals. So it just shows that the pedigree that the Raptors have had to just go on the road and get the job done. Kawhi's magical playoff run, if you put some stats on it, 30.5 points, 9.1 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1.7 steals on 49, 38, 88% shooting. So not really a 50, 40, 90, but pretty close overall. And, you know, Siakam also standing out, averaging almost 20 points on 51% shooting in the finals. Essentially stood out as a Pippen to Kawhi's Jordan there. So just a fairy tale season, as Amir had mentioned, just a team of destiny as a whole.
Yeah, it's crazy we're talking about this, and I'm thinking about it. Every series, I think, except for the G State series in the finals, I think we were down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were 1-0 down to Orlando. I believe we were down 2-1 to Philly, and you mentioned Agent P, that Game 4 that was pivotal, because in Game 3 we lost by 21.
Yeah.
In Philly, people were thinking, wow, they're going to go down 3-1. Obviously,
and
that
doing
didn't
that
happen.
stupid airplane, right?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, forward to Milwaukee, we're down 0-2. You got Stephen A being like, it's kind of a done deal. We come back, win 4 straight. So it shows you like the growth and the importance of a coach, I think, like Nick Nurse. You know what I mean? Nothing against, like, you know, nothing against Coach Brett Brown for Philly or Coach Bud. But I mean, you can kind of tell the mentality that Nick Nurse kind of instilled, you know, in a team. You know, yeah, we had Kawhi as a superstar, but, you know, like you guys said, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, no one thought they would step up to the way they did, and to have that confidence in them, you know, eventually catapulted us to where we were and what we did in that playoff run.
Definitely.
Just to even add to that, remember, like, I think it was again in Philly when Kawhi had that kind of calf strain or pull or whatever, and he was kind of hobbling at the end of the games, and there was question about his health again. You know, can he pull through and win these rest of the games? And so I think that was a narrative right there when he had that, we saw that injury that a lot of people, including myself, said, you know, we're going to write off the Raptors because he's not going to play at 100%. But, you know, in the post-game interview, he's like, I'm good. There's nothing wrong. So it's, you know, shows his strength as he's just kind of persevering through that pain.
Yeah, man. And I think a lot of it, obviously he's not here now, with us, but I think he's left his mark on these players too, right? The one X factor, he's not there, but I think what he's left behind and kind of ingrained in these guys is kind of the work ethic. Taking it up to that next level in the playoffs, which I think the Raptors lacked essentially before Kawhi, right? They would fold. So I think we got a championship, obviously, with him, with his assistance. But I think this year truly is going to be the one, thing that we're going to see is how his impact has kind of shaped these guys' thinking moving forward.
I think just that killer instinct that Kawhi had as well. I mean, I think there was one moment where it was almost like, why just settle to get one or two road games? Let's get another one. Like just even like rallying the locker room as well. So like instilling that, I guess, courage for the Raptors as well to know that, hey, that they're going to keep battling and going for it. You touched on it as well, Nabil, the value of such a coach in terms of Coach Nick Nurse willing to do adjustments. No offense to Coach Casey, and I know we've, had our jabs at him as well in terms of just what we felt about his previous coaching style, but it just goes to show you someone who's willing to make adjustments. And even in the finals, just even some of the commentary where he has the guts to play a box and one against a multiple winning championship organization in Golden State, and he just has the guts to do that. That's a high school defense, by the way, but it worked. It worked to perfection, and he had the players buy in, and they bought into that system, and that's even carried over into this season, where the Raptors have the best defense going into these last couple of 8 games. It's a defensive identity that's now carried over, not only just a box and one, but multiple different defensive plays and strategies that he's also brought to the forefront.
I remember Steph Curry's quote, "Janky defense."
That janky defense got a chip, so I mean, it worked out beautifully. But no, great points, guys, in terms of just the Raptors playoff recap as a whole. What a magical run, a magical season, and we got a banner now, that says NBA champions, and what a historic moment that was. And great job in terms of just even analyzing and seeing the anniversary that's coming this week. But let's talk about this current season. I mean, there's been discussions now with respect to continuation of the current season, with 8 regular season games to be played. The way that the league has now arranged it is 13 teams have been invited from the Western Conference, 9 teams from the Eastern Conference, so 22 teams in total. And I know, Nabil, we talked about it the other day as well, but the mention of if the 8th and 9th seed, there's a 4-game difference, almost a play-in tournament that's going to happen in terms of like a play-in, a double elimination format, to see who secures that 8th seed. So what are you guys' thoughts in terms of the continuation of the season, expectations, and even maybe your thoughts on how the early playoff predictions and how they might play out?
Well, one of the things I actually look forward to is that, if all the players buy in to come back, it's going to be, everybody should be healthy and well rested. So there's no excuse not to play. The other point is that, these teams may have not meshed, especially if they have like new coaching staff or new players joining the team, especially the ones that haven't been together for a long period of time. I think the Raptors are one of the teams that are kind of a veteran team. They've been together for a while, but the other teams, may struggle. It's kind of throws kind of a wrench into the whole play of the season, just because everybody's kind of learn what's going on. And then going right into the playoffs, you don't have that time to kind of mesh and kind of get your plays down and your kind of offense and defense as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, say during a play call or kind of a clutch moment situation, what happens in those games, I guess, or series that come down to 1 or 2 points. So it'll be interesting to see. And as well, how they're going to be in Orlando, Disney World, for the entirety of this season, how that plays out with them just staying there the whole time. What are they going to be doing that whole time, right? So I'm actually looking forward to it. It's one of those things where I love watching the playoffs, especially. I don't really care for the first 82 games of the season, but I do watch games in and out. But the playoffs are where I feel like the NBA starts, so I look forward to it.
Yeah, man. For me, oh gosh, like looking to see how things went last season. I'll be the first one to come out and say I was wrong. I thought that when we lost DeMar last year, I know Kawhi was a superstar. So let me go first off by saying that was a great surprise to see Kawhi prove it, and everyone was saying it around me, and I know Kawhi made it happen. But now that he's gone, I thought as well. Let's see how the Raptors rebound. How do they come back from losing someone like him at that level? And you know what? Honestly, the core is still there. You still have Serge, you still have Lowry, you still have Ibaka, you have all your main guys still. So ultimately, they're still playing at top level. And I think the defensive mind that they have going forward, they're now ranked second defensively. So that has carried forward, and that is going to make the difference and has proven the difference. I think that's what's going to keep them in contention going forward. The playoffs, I don't see too many upsets. I could see. I mean, you never know. The Mavs may get Luka and Porzingis taking out like the Lakers somehow. I could see that maybe, small percentage.
Ooh, that's tough. Yeah.
You never know. Aside from that, though, maybe the Pelicans and Zion come through because they were playing at a high level beforehand as well. But aside from that, I see it going pretty well for the Raptors. I still see it being a Bucks and Raptors final. I don't know if that's even possible actually. With the current layout that they predict, but
yeah, it's possible. Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Eastern Conference Finals.
It's going the 1-8, the same route that normal playoffs go.
Yeah, same format.
Okay. So I still see, because that's the first defensive team and the second defensive team, and a lot of us have been saying defense often wins things, right? And at the end of the day, so I still see it going that route, prediction wise. So we'll see how it works out, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Raptors have a great chance still. If you look at teams like the Clippers, they're stacked, obviously, right? But they were having some issues kind of gelling together. And towards the end, before this thing got shut down, they were finally coming together, right? But then you have this kind of break. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I mean, it might be fine. I know they've been kind of working out on their Peloton bikes throughout this whole thing. But to be honest, I feel like every other team as well. Like the Raptors have a strong core. I think the biggest thing that we take pride in, and we all know this, is our chemistry, right? And the coaching. Like that's the one thing that hasn't changed. Yes, Kawhi has left, but like I mentioned earlier, I think he's left his imprint on these guys when it comes to the playoffs and taking it up that next level. So I mean, thank you, Kawhi. You've done what you came here to do. So I mean, I'm still heading. For us, I feel like the hardest battle in the playoffs is going to be somehow if we end up playing Boston, to be honest. I feel like they're a stacked team, man. I feel like we can handle Milwaukee just based on last year, right? I think Nick Nurse will figure it out in the end. But there's something about the Bucks. There's something about the Celtics that is kind of worrisome, right? They play a fast game, similar to the Raptors, right? They kind of have the same type of pedigree as well, right? So that, to me, like that's one of the biggest matchups in the East, right? Obviously, ESPN's, I think they put us at like fourth or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Come out on top. Obviously, those are just rankings, but I don't know, I really feel like the Raptors are going to do some damage.
I mean, just to kind of expand on your point, sorry, IGMP. I don't really look at the American analysts because they had Raptors not even in the top 8 this year once Kawhi left. So we'll just put that in the back burner. But just as a fan, I'm just excited just to see that the NBA is back. Obviously, seeing them play without fans in the crowd, that's going to be an interesting effect. But with regards to the actual season, I mean, prior to COVID happening, teams had already played 60 to 65 games together. I mean, fine, some people did loan management. So you would hope that they built some sort of chemistry. The NBA is also very smart in coming back and bringing that 8-game regular season to kind of work out kinks. It's like a practice. And like Andy had mentioned, I mean, when you get into the playoffs, that's a different world, right? That's a different beast. So technically, I mean, the first 82 games for ranking, sure, but we've seen an 8th seed beat a number 1 seed in the playoffs before. So, technically the seedings to a certain extent matter, but I think at the end of the day, when it comes time, playoffs is a different beast. And I think that's what they're using the 8-game regular season kind of to use as practice, just to kind of mold the teams back together. Jumping into the actual playoff scene, if the standings kind of remain the way they do, my dark horse, as you guys know, has always been the Houston Rockets. And if Harden and Westbrook, I feel, gel, I personally think that they can take out Denver in the first round. Again, if the seedings remain the same, they would see the Clippers the next round, I believe. So that gets a bit tricky. But I think they have a good chance. And heading over to the East, I mentioned this before to JV. I mean, the Bucks and Heat will play second round. You don't give respect to the Heat, but I think with Butler and Bam Adebayo and the young guns that they have, I mean, I think they can give a good run against the Bucks in the playoffs. So those are kind of my 2 series to watch, which would be a second round. And at the end of the day, I think all the other cards will play out the way they do, and I think we'll just have an enjoyable season. And at the end of the day, they'll hopefully crown, a champion. And I personally think that this champion technically should not have an asterisk. The reason why I say that is because I think at the end of the day, like, the playoffs is where the season really begins. So you played 65 games, you're going to play 8 more. You kind of figure out who's going to be, the top of that statue or whatnot. But so I think technically there shouldn't be an asterisk put on this year's champion due to the COVID situation, because at the end of the day, you played most of the regular season games. You'll do what you need to do in the playoffs, and hopefully you'll be crowned as a champion.
Yeah, because playoffs don't change, right? It's the same format. Yeah.
They're going with the 1 to 8.
Yeah,
except for that. That little buy-in 8 to 9 elimination game.
The only thing I would say to the non-asterisks is, like, I think they're having some discussions that some of the players that they don't want to play. You know what I mean? So, like, if some of the major players choose that they don't want to play, I don't think you can blame them. Right. And then,
True.
like, I think that would be the only point. But if everybody plays, there's no asterisks, man.
Yeah. But just to touch on that, though, the NBA and players' unions are still working on a deal for that. I think the players who don't want to play, it's not because they don't want to play. It's more or less just safety of the family,
issues,
right?
Yeah.
Once, if the NBA can kind of guarantee or show them some way that they can be safe, I think, they'll definitely play. I think that's the hesitation right now, and the players' union is there to protect the player regardless of the season, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
But they're also saying, like, those players that don't decide to play, I mean, they can obviously can't force them, but the team kind of suffers, right? So they're going to bring in some substitutions, which again will affect the whole team as a unit, right? So I mean, I don't know who these players are, and they're obviously not going to disclose that until they don't show up. But I think it's going to have an impact on the team itself, and kind of them moving forward and their performance even. So it's going to be interesting. And then the second thing is, like, the coaches, right? There was some discussion about certain older coaches not being on the bench, right? That's going to be so, like, that's going to be super weird, man. Like, some of the older kind of staff, right? Or even coaches, like, how do you play with your coach in the dressing room and you're, like, in that intense situation, right?
Environment, for
yeah,
sure.
Just
like,
to see we got ejected every game.
yeah.
Two teams and ejected.
Let's see how that works out too.
So I think they still have to work out a lot of kinks, I guess, before the season begins. Yeah. So I think when it gets to that point, we'll figure out, like, all the stuff you guys mentioned. Yeah, for sure. If all those things come into play, definitely then you can put an asterisk. Because I mean, if you have, for example, like a superstar player not playing, obviously that's a big deal. But I think we'll find out more information, towards July, and then we can go from there and see.
And I think actually it's funny. I was thinking about this earlier today, and I actually completely agree with you. Like, for me at least, I don't see that there should be an asterisk, because to me they're all playing in the same conditions roughly. But there's one team I can say that if they win, I would consider an asterisk, but no one expects them to win. But if Orlando does well this year, we have to think about it. Orlando's on curve. And that's the only team I would give an asterisk to. The only team. Everyone else I won't give it to. But if Orlando somehow pulls it through and wins something, I'll put an asterisk on them.
I don't know how often they practice at Disney World, though, man. If that's what if they're spending their time with Mickey Mouse on the side, then maybe it's something that, I don't know if it's an unfair advantage, but it's an interesting asterisk, John, for sure. In terms
very interesting.
Very interesting.
Because
Who did they
technically,
play first round? Oh,
yeah,
they
exactly.
would play.
Bucks.
Oh, they play the Bucks. So you're making it.
You're making a
It's
pretty.
the only team.
Come on,
It's
bro.
the only team. I'm not saying.
They would have to knock out the Bucks first round.
I can't put an asterisk on this season. I just feel like it's the perfect opportunity for any of these teams to win a championship. Nobody's. I don't. I'm not a person who plays with the NBA rankings, regular season rankings. I just feel like there's a different gear when guys start playing, and the guys who will shine will always step up. Case in point, I always say LeBron James is one of those guys. He just saves himself for the entire season, just to get to the playoffs. And when he's there, because he knows his body now, and he just lights it up to a whole nother gear. Kawhi is the same way. Young guys like Giannis, they play hard the whole regular season because they're just trying to show up and play. And I feel like the Rockets kind of do the same thing. I don't think the Rockets, Harden has kind of slowed that gear down during the regular season to kind of save himself for the playoffs. So there's a lot of kind of teams that they know playoff pedigree and they'll be ready for it. And at the same time, though, the teams that we don't expect, like your Orlando or even Miami, because Miami's talking to getting Marcus Cousins as well. Those teams are just a piece away from becoming a powerhouse.
Definitely.
And those guys who don't get the long contracts, like your DeMarcus Cousins, Carmelo Anthony, this is a perfect opportunity for those guys to just shine because they've had those experiences, or they can be a top-notch player in this time when these superstars may not come back or their team might not come back to play, right? So I think it's going to be an interesting playoff. And whoever wins, regardless of the situation, I think it's a legit championship, and they should be proud of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would say, in terms of it is exciting that, it looks like basketball is almost back on the horizon, obviously trying to address some of these kinks and making sure that everyone's on the same page and all the safety elements are addressed as well. What I'm in a way, though, it would have been interesting to see in this setting where all the teams are together in one destination, could there have been a little bit more creativity in terms of the playoff bracket? I know we saw, a kind of a makeshift bracket that had the Lakers and the Clippers on opposite ends, the Bucks and the Raptors on opposite ends. So you would have had an interesting dynamic in terms of just matchups. So, like in that case, the Lakers and the Raptors, if in terms of the higher seeds winning, would have faced each other on one side of the bracket, and it would have been Clippers Bucks on the other side of the bracket. So potential finals matchups happening in almost like a quote unquote semi-final setup. So that would have been pretty interesting, I find. I agree with the points that were raised with respect to, I do feel that the teams at the top have done well enough throughout the 65 games in terms of their standing and their chemistry that they should shine during the playoffs. What is interesting, though, is that 8 seed that ultimately comes in maybe during that makeshift playoff. So I want to throw it out to you guys. So the 1 8 seed that is vulnerable, as much as they've had a phenomenal season, is the Grizzlies in terms of being at the 8 seed. So if not the Grizzlies, they're followed by Portland, New Orleans, Sacramento, San Antonio, and the Suns. Of those other teams, I want to throw it out to you guys. If it's not the Grizzlies, which one of those teams takes the 8 seed? And of whoever takes that 8 seed, who has the best possibility to maybe challenge the Lakers or even take them out?
I will have to say Portland. Portland, I think they have the pieces to be almost a gun show. Like, they have the range. I wouldn't say they have the top, one of the better defensive team, but just putting up the numbers points wise and just running down the court really quickly, it will make LA spread their defense thin. They will have to come far out to the lines. Remember, Dame's gonna drop dimes all the time from midcourt if he wants to. He's Steph Curry 2.0, so I'll give him that. He does drop them far and deep. So I think they're my team. If you were to say to knock the Lakers off, they have the best chance to do it.
Yeah, man, same. I agree. I think Portland, and I think Yusuf Nurkic is coming back. He was injured, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's coming back. Zach Collins is coming back. So I mean, and then Dame, right? Like it's Dame time in the playoffs, man.
CJ.
Yeah,
He wants it
yeah,
bad
like
too. He wants it
time, right?
bad.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
even when they got swept last year? Okay.
but can you imagine if it's not Portland and if it's New Orleans and they somehow beat the Lakers? Like, can you imagine that conversation with Zion and LeBron, right? Don't think it's gonna happen, but like we've seen things like that happen before. So yeah, I mean, to me, like I think the obvious pick is Portland.
I think the way 2020 has been, you don't know, right? To be honest, I think the higher gods would maybe want New Orleans because they would want that Zion, LeBron kind of handing the torch. I know he's still a young rookie. Um,
Ratings.
Ratings for sure, especially being off for so long. But realistically, I think, and you guys both, I agree. I think Portland, they have the playoff pedigree. We listed all the players. Anwar did mention that Nurkic and Collins, may come back from their injuries. They did add Carmelo. I'm not saying he's an X factor, but he's another player who has some playoff pedigree, who can give you that offensive mentality. And then obviously with Dame, Lillard, and CJ McCollum. So I think the overall package, if it's not the Grizzlies, who are currently sitting number 8, I would also have to go with the Portland Trailblazers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the points already mentioned, I'd go along the same lines. Portland, I would love to see Zion because, the start of the season for Zion didn't go as planned, if we all remember. He started to really get into his zone as the season came on in the last few weeks. He was really picking up before everything came to a halt. So I'd love to see him, going forward in the playoffs and going far. I don't think it'll happen, though. Yeah, I'd go Portland as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I disagree. I think Portland will get smashed by the Lakers. Like I think we've seen what Portland can be. I look at them as like Toronto West. Basically, they get into the playoffs and then they eventually like collapse when it comes up to like a quality team.
I will say this though with Portland. Portland always went up against the Warriors, and the Warriors were always the better shooting team. However, Portland in the West, they're one of the top shooting teams. Next to, I say, the Rockets. Rockets still put up really good numbers, but I would feel like Portland would put, I can't say against Lakers how Lakers shoot, but I think they would give Lakers a harder time over, like, say, Rockets right now.
The one thing that I'll say though, sorry, Amir, go ahead.
I think New Orleans would give them a harder time, but I just think that's a stacked squad. They're just young, I think, but I think I think they actually surprise people because their road record is like 15 and 17, and they're just starting to get clicking. You know what I mean? Like,
also with New Orleans too, you're forgetting Ingram and Ball, who played for the Lakers prior, right? They might have some vengeance, within them. So it could be another great storyline, not only with Zion, but you have former Lakers players. I think
true.
Josh Hart as well, right? So they might come hard. They're young, they got nothing to lose, right? So.
And I don't have anything against Portland. I really like Dame Lillard. Like, he's one of my favorite players. It's just I think at this point you've seen what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've seen their peak.
Yeah. In terms of even when I posed that question, obviously I was thinking of my own answer and what I was gonna say to it. I do agree. I think Portland, based on having been in the playoffs, can make this run as well to kind of hurdle the Grizzlies. Whether they have enough firepower to take out the Lakers, it might be a challenge. But to the points that were raised as well, with Nurkic coming back, they're pretty well coached in terms of Terry Stotts. He does a good job with what he has. CJ and Dame, they will have to shoot the lights out as well. And we'll see what Melo brings to that team as well. I would love to see New Orleans also make a run and also fit in there. So that would be kind of my kind of 1A pick as well because of Zion. Nabil mentioned it with respect to Lonzo Ball and Ingram and Hart having that revenge marked against the Lakers. Essentially, LeBron was the factor in having them traded out of there as well. And man, we've mentioned New Orleans, but once again, underrated Drew Holiday, also
Definitely.
on a large playoff stage.
Absolutely.
He is a dog, man. He will get into people's face and defend
100%.
and score as well. Another thing, I know, Amir, you said it as well, with Portland or whoever becomes that 8th seed, momentum. because they would have still been playing in terms of that de facto little mini playoff play-in.
Right.
So even the Lakers, if they're caught napping or they're sleeping or they're not training, maybe a game or two could be stolen
Yeah.
early on in that series. But I guess overall experience will probably wear them out, and it'll be difficult. So yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there. In terms of road record, I know Amir raised that as well. Obviously, it's a neutral site in terms of Orlando. But when I was looking at some of these road records for some of these teams, Philadelphia, brutal, terrible road record. So they're not anywhere close to Philly. It'll be
Yeah.
played in Orlando. So hopefully we'll see what happens with
No crowd.
Simmons and Embiid. Are they able to no crowd, and are they able to just rally and figure something out? I do find Brett Brown's coaching to be suspect, so I don't really have a lot of faith there. But we'll see how it goes.
Well, like you
There's-
said, yeah, no crowd, no home court advantage, right?
Yeah.
You know what I
No.
mean? But I would say though, if
Nobody to hype up the
exactly,
airplane.
exactly. But I will go back to what we were talking about. If New Orleans does make it, can you imagine Anthony Davis on the other side? You know,
Right.
being like, okay, this is my former team. So I mean, unfortunately, in that sense, I think the Lakers would step up their game, and Anthony Davis, I think, would play out of this world. But
Yeah.
to go back to what we were just talking about, yeah, no crowd, no home court advantage. I mean, it's anybody's game.
Those video montages would be crazy though, eh? Just to build up the New
Yeah.
Orleans
Oh,
Lakers
man.
first round. It would
Oh,
be
yeah.
unreal.
The other
But,
thing too,
go
for
ahead, Emil.
Portland. Sorry. For Portland, I just don't think they have anybody to cover Anthony Davis. With New Orleans, I think you can still kind of throw Ingram on there. Like he's relatively the same. So I don't know how. Like honestly, I haven't watched him that much, so I don't know how he is defensively.
Anthony
but
Davis is
He's
pretty-
long though, right? Like he puts his hands up. He's
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
He's lanky. He's
Yeah.
long and
Yeah,
lanky.
I'd be
He
worried about
seems like
putting
he can run.
Yeah, I'd be worried about putting Ingram on him for too long, and even that green rookie in terms of Jackson Hayes, he will get
Yeah.
eaten alive as well. So I don't really like that matchup. I think AD would cook, but it'll be interesting. I think it'll be definitely interesting.
Yo, but is LeBron getting bodied by Zion though? Well, I don't know, man.
No, he's not getting bodied.
Not
but-
yet. Not this season. Not this season.
There's no like.
I don't remember, but did Zion get his injury? Like I remember he had a
He's
bad
good, bro.
injury. Yeah.
No, I think he came back. He was ready
He's
to go.
good.
Man.
He's
Yeah,
cooking.
Did? Okay,
He's-
yeah,
he was
that's what I
right.
figured.
He's doing
hope
some
that doesn't
crazy
go
stuff.
against them, but
See, what's going to be interesting is this 8-game regular season. Like, are certain teams going to use that to gel, or are certain people going to use it as like kind of extra load management to kind of, although they've already been off for like a couple of months.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Do they risk and just kind of, let the young guns kind of get their experience and then just kind of use that momentum going in?
Man, if anybody load manages now, like,
yeah, I
come
think
on,
that,
bro.
Those
Yeah,
8
exactly.
games are like pivotal to get into kind of get your playoffs ready because
Yeah.
a lot of these guys don't have like home gyms or home courts. They're not hitting up. They're just doing whatever workouts they can in their
Giannis
houses.
didn't touch a basketball. Remember that? Giannis came out and he's like, I haven't.
Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
so-
You know he
Oh,
has.
man, and out of
Like-
all the people that we mentioned, he's the one that
He's the one that needs to.
basketball skills the most.
So like, we have to. Well, I mean,
That's
we
why
make him
Orlando
a
has the
little bit
whole
rusty,
court.
but I just had to mention it. He doesn't have that. Like,
Yeah, so
So
yeah,
it's gonna take time. He's gonna probably start with
exactly.
rusty.
So
I
those
expect a lot
8
of
games are
teams-
crucial to get
Oh,
these
for
guys
sure.
back
For
into shape.
sure.
I think those first couple of games of those 8 are going to be pretty bad to watch to see like
And-
just how rusty guys
Yeah,
are.
it will be.
And
It will
remember,
be.
it's like right now, although the players haven't agreed to anything, the teams then have to kind of make an agreement with the players or their actual players to come back to start training. Right? There is a deadline for that as well. That hasn't been kind of decided either. So, is it going to be a week before they go to Orlando or whatever the case might be?
Yeah, I think they're saying July, but it's supposed to be July 7th. I agree they haven't like finalized it, but they're saying July 7th they should be there, and then they're supposed to have 3 weeks to be getting ready in shape, practicing. But I don't know, like is 3 weeks enough to be ready? Really, I don't know. It's
Almost like a de facto training camp, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you get 8 games to get your kinks out.
Exactly. Like
And
a
it's not even
yeah.
really like it's not even like a preseason, John. It's almost like a couple of games, right? And it's like
right.
it would be I think that's a much safer option than jumping right into the playoffs
Oh no,
where
for sure.
everyone's cold and injuries galore.
Yeah.
And that would be a nightmare.
That's
for,
literally like
everyone involved.
0 to 100, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want that.
So
You know, I'm just-
what if Kawhi load manages the 8 games, but then they end up winning the championship?
Bro.
Uh,
man.
Well, they have the talent, right? They
That's
have
smart.
the talent, though, right? They have.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So for me, like I loved what he did here. He did amazing stuff, but when he left, I wasn't mad too much because like that load management was starting to get on my nerves a little bit, man. Like you see, like it was starting to get on my nerves, and I feel for San Antonio fans because like they had to go through years of that. But like I don't miss that
For sure.
being gone at all.
In terms of load management, though, man, like I know you posed it, like what if Kawhi sits those 8 games? They can't risk it. They're only a game and a half ahead of Denver for
For
third
third.
seed.
Mm.
So it's pretty jockey. Like honestly, man, like even Dallas, a team that Anwar mentioned during our last episode, speaking about Luka and just how they're on the rise
They're right
and how
there.
dynamic their offense is.
Yeah.
They are 7th right now, but they can be as high as 4th within this 8-game schedule if like based on how the jockeying goes as well.
But if
So-
there's no home court, what does it matter?
No, but I'm saying in terms of matchups and seeding, right?
Oh,
like
okay,
in terms of
okay,
first round, instead of having to face the Clippers first round,
Yeah,
you're facing
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
an
yeah.
OKC or a Houston.
I got
It's a
you.
different matchup, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and then
sure.
like in terms of getting over even to the second round. So I think that the teams that have the luxury to rest and maybe do load management are the Lakers and the Bucks,
For
based
sure.
on the fact that they
Yeah.
have such a sizable
Yeah.
lead in their respective
Definitely.
conferences. But it's going to be interesting, man. I guess finals picks tentative. Do you guys have just even a rough estimate right now for my conference finals? I have Lakers, Clippers, and either Raptors, Bucks on the Eastern side. So that's kind of like my final 4 right now. Whoever wins the Lakers Clippers series, I see them winning the championship this season. I just think I don't know if the NBA can handle us winning another championship, and I'm always wondering about. I hate to say it, the
Other
zebras,
forces?
the refs, and other forces. In terms of this tournament. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
ECF or West or for the
Both.
Western Conference for me is,
Oh.
is Lakers Clippers. I don't see anybody upsetting that. Like I think we all seen what Kawhi could do, and I don't see that. In the East, it's gonna be Bucks versus either us or the Celtics. Like I honestly. I was excited. I'm excited to see what the Raptors can do this year, but I'm not going to be the one to say that they have to prove that they still have to prove that they can do it in the playoffs without Kawhi.
Yeah.
So I agree with Anwar 100%. Like I see that Celtics game, that Celtics series going 7 games, and
Very
it
scary.
could go either way. It could go either way, to be honest with you. Like that's gonna be a great series to watch, I think.
Well, coach and coach, right? Like
Yeah.
Brad Stevens versus Nick
Yeah.
Nurse, like
No
two
slouch.
geniuses
No
just kind of
slouches
like
there.
going at each other. It will be very interesting if that's how it plays out to try to get to the Eastern Conference Final.
I feel like they're just like a slightly more, maybe not slightly. I feel like they're just a more talented version of us, but I feel like our team play is a little bit nicer than them. Like they got better one-on-one players. Like if everything breaks down, they got more dudes who you can just give the ball to. And be like, all right, go ahead, just give me a bucket.
I like
I
the
think-
championship pedigree on our side.
Sure.
Though,
Yeah.
that should offset that.
I think if the standings remain, I mean, regardless of what changes, I think in the Western Conference, it'll be Lakers and Clippers. And personally, I think in the Eastern Conference, I think the winner of the Raptors and Celtics second round series, I have a feeling that they will go on to probably play the Bucks. But for the finals, I'm actually going to go and say the Clippers and the Raptors will be in the NBA finals. It'll be a
Be a great
Kawhi
That was my thing.
Kawhi
Yeah.
versus the champions, and let's do this.
Yeah.
That would be
Let's settle it.
dreams.
Epic,
That'd be a
bro.
dream, man.
Epic. To me, that's a better matchup than the kind of Lakers and like Bucks, right? To me, that's a more Cinderella kind of matchup where it's like this guy leaves, right? Wins the championship and leaves. Now he's facing off against that same team, right? Oh man, I can't even imagine what that would be like. Can you imagine?
That's gonna be rough. That'll be a rough series. man.
Lakers
It will be a
Bucks,
rough
like,
series.
perfect.
Yeah,
Lakers
yeah.
Bucks does have that historical context.
Yeah, yeah,
From-
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Well, like they
'cause-
can really play off kind of like the legacy aspect of it and just kind of from that old school feel as well. So if it does become Lakers and Bucks, there'll be an ability to market that. But to
Yeah.
Anwar's point,
Man,
and even what Nabil said as well, Clippers Raptors, what an ending to this
it's a
season.
scary, scary matchup though, man. Because if you think about the actual matchups, like I would love the Raptors to win, but man, there's a part like
That's not
Clippers
a
are
good matchup for
stacked,
us.
dude.
That's not a
They're
good matchup.
stacked, right? Like,
We
think
just
about people who are coming off the bench for the Clippers,
I know,
right?
I know.
No, it'll be a
Scary.
fight. It'll be a fight for
Yeah.
sure. And yeah, honestly, if the Raptors don't, let's for example say make even the Celtics, I think, and the Clippers would be a good final series. I personally think, just with the talent that they have. I mean, Stevens and Rivers with their defensive minded mindsets too. So that would be me, Raptors, Celtics from the East, and the Clippers coming out of the West.
For me, I have to. LeBron's been out of the playoffs 1 year. He's hungry, man. He's not gonna give it. He's still training hardcore up to today. That man wants it, and they have the biggest kind of want to have it get it done this year, because next year I think Anthony Davis is an opt out. He only signed a 2-year deal with an opt out in the second year, and same with LeBron. So they can't keep this club together forever. And the same thing with Giannis on the Bucks side. They have to get it done, or that Bucks team is going to blow up and Giannis potentially may leave. So both teams have their reason to just get to that hurdle of being in the finals, or it's a bust either way. I do agree with you guys that Raptors definitely have a strong potential. I will say the Raptors Bucks in the East. And again, as much as I don't like the Clippers, I have, just because of what is it? What is the
Patrick
Patrick?
Beverly?
Patrick
Yeah,
Beverly.
man, I just noise the crap out of me.
Yeah, same, bro.
He's doing his job right, man.
He's good,
Yeah,
though.
I think that piece with Kawhi does make them a huge contender as well. So yeah, in the West, I will say Lakers and Clippers as well. So, but I think in the finals, Bucks and Lakers.
I'm actually the exact same as Andy. Bucks and Lakers is who I envision it to be, but it's not who I want it to be. I picture Lakers and Clippers West. I want Bucks and Raptors East, of course. But my concern is if Giannis goes to that finals and he loses, that he somehow still stays with Milwaukee, because you guys all know I don't want him to do that. I want him to come to the Raptors.
But what if they win the championship?
If they win a championship, I don't know. I just don't want him.
Why would he leave? There's no need
I
to
know.
leave.
I know. I can't give him a reason to.
He might,
But
man.
I want him here in Toronto. I want him here. I want him to build his future here. I want us to have the dynasty going forward. That's selfish, I know. I admit that. That's just how I feel about it, though. Kawhi, because he didn't stay, I'm still upset about that, because I feel like the honorable thing to have done would be stay in Toronto.
One more year.
A year or
For
two.
sure.
Yeah.
Defend 100%.
So I'm still a little bit upset about that. So I do want him to lose at West. I want it to be Lakers, and I want it to be Raptors. Is what that's the final that I want to see, is Lakers versus Raptors.
Heard it.
My
Plot
man.
twist. Plot twist.
My man.
That would also be good.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I mean, and I feel as though same thing, like, as Andy was saying for LeBron, he is hungry. He's up there in age, he's got it going. But if he wins though, and this would be his 4th title, I don't know, because then the arguments would come out again about like the whole asterisk and the debate and everything. But we can talk about that another time. But ultimately, that's what I want to see in the end, and I want Giannis to either come here or go to the Warriors and just leave Milwaukee. Unless
Just for
he's going to get $250 million though. That's going to be so hard to turn down. But
He's
I hope
gonna
he's
get
true
that
to his
anywhere,
word.
though, man.
Yeah, just with LeBron though, obviously you guys know I'm not a huge LeBron fan. I love what he does off the court. He's very charitable. He's always a humanitarian at heart. I just didn't like the way he went about how he handles things with management and teams. But when his back's been put on, against the wall, he's with whatever weak team he's been playing with, he's taking those teams to a high level in the playoffs. And with that force with Anthony Davis, and before the shutdown, Anthony Davis was playing amazing. You could say he probably could have he was a contender for the MVP as well, right?
Yep.
He was playing at a very high level. And just to add LeBron James, another MVP candidate, you can't stop that force.
Well, yeah, you raise a good point. With LeBron not being in the playoffs last year, so he is definitely coming hungry. But kind of going back to last week's conversation about the narratives and, how me and Agent P were saying LeBron for MVP, but that could also be the narrative this year for the Lakers as a franchise, right? Like Kobe passed away, so I don't know if the higher gods would want that to happen. It would be good for the Lakers franchise. Obviously, it would give the face of the league, LeBron James, his 4th title. But just to do what the Lakers have been through this year, from Kobe Bean's passing and so on and so forth. So, I mean, that could kind of be a fitting end, and capping off, their season.
Yeah. it'll be really interesting to see, how this plays out. I mean, with the Lakers as well, the amount of minutes that LeBron's going to have to play. Yes, we've been off basketball for quite some time, but just the amount of like playoff intensity minutes that he's going to have to play multiple rounds. And we see a stark drop off when LeBron's sitting and resting.
Hmm.
Anthony Davis plays really well. He does the best that he can with the supporting cast that's around him with LeBron sitting during those minutes. But it'll be really interesting how much either a Lakers lead shrinks or they're just in these back and forth battles. And does that take a wear and tear? Does that have a toll as you move along in the playoffs as well? For the Raptors, I really love the mentality going in. I think I heard Siakam and even Nurse talk about like, hey, if you don't respect us as a champion, that's your problem, So they're not really worried about the outside discussion and the naysayers. They're just focused about themselves. They have the right mentality. And even Nick Nurse, as the coach, almost the head of that team there, as the head coach, saying like, hey, we're used to this. This is the same as last year. Everybody counted us out already. So the mentality has already been ingrained and bulletin board material is ready to say like, hey, your championship last year was a fluke. Let's see if you guys can defend it. So that alone that has me with a chip on my shoulder. And I'm not even
Absolutely.
playing,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like, imagine how fired up the players are. One thing I want to throw out to the group before we close off. Dark horse in each conference for each of you guys. And then we'll close off.
Dark horse to make it to the finals.
Just dark horse in terms of a team that'll do well in the East and the West. They may not make it to the finals, but just a dark horse team that we haven't maybe discussed for each.
I'll go west for Dallas, and for the East, I mean, for the East, for the fun of it, I'll go Orlando.
Okay. For me, you guys know, dark horse in the West, Houston. I feel with Harden
Are
and
they
Westbrook.
really a dark horse though? They're pretty much up there.
No, they are, but I mean, it's never going for them. So for me, because they are sitting in the 6th seed in the lower half of the West, I would go with them as the dark horse, quote unquote. And on the East, for me, I'm looking at the Heat, because honestly, with what they had, I did not think that they would be in the top 4 or 5 of the East. And I honestly feel that they can give a good run. I'm not saying they're going to win the title, but that's my Eastern Conference choice for a dark horse.
Cool.
Yeah, man, same. I would say Dallas and the Heat for sure.
Yeah.
I think that were a young, scrappy team.
Yeah, if Rockets are considered a dark horse, I will say Rockets could put up a definite fight. And I was going to say Celtics in the East. Celtics, as Anwar mentioned, they are kind of scary looking. How far they make it, I don't know, but they potentially have the possibility of going high. So
I'll go with Oklahoma just because I like them this year. I just like how they're playing.
Oh, that's a good
I don't think they
choice,
might like. I'm not saying they're gonna get to the finals or anything.
Oh, it's a
I just
dark
like how
horse
they're
pick.
playing.
It's good, yeah.
And in the East, even though I hate them, I gotta go with Philly.
yeah,
If they ever get their shit together, like
Nobody's
that's a
talking about
dangerous
Philly.
team, man. Like it's a dangerous team. Even
I
don't trust them though, man.
I was
Yeah.
waiting for somebody to mention Philly.
Wondering
but
who's going to say
nobody
Philly,
mentioned
and in beer you said Philly. I was waiting
Yeah.
for somebody to say Philly as a dark horse. So
Like even minus what's his face? Miami guy.
a Butler.
Butler. Even minus Butler, like they're still ridiculously talented.
Well, because they picked up Al Horford, right? I'm not saying they're
Yeah.
comparable,
Oh,
but so
yeah.
I mean they're stacked. If they're
pick up.
used right,
Yeah.
they can do
Yeah,
damage.
Just don't trust them, dude. Like I don't know.
Nobody talks
They're
about
talented,
Philly because
for sure.
Embiid never takes it seriously. I don't feel like he takes anything seriously, and that's why nobody kind of picks him.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't gotten that mentality to kind of lock down and go.
But maybe
Yeah.
you never know from last year, from that Game 7 loss.
From
you
the
know, maybe
crying.
they're coming back with a different chip. You never know, right? Like a different chip on their shoulder. Maybe the antics. I don't know if Embiid would stop that, but
No one's talking about them, right? So like that's another team
they're under the radar, right?
they're really under the radar. And I saw some, I guess, pictures that showed like looks like Simmons is all D's and has been working out as well. And who knows what we will see during this makeshift tournament. So we'll see how it plays out.
He got D's instead of getting a shot. That's Genius.
Well,
Can I change my choice?
it might be counter. You already called it. I'm sorry, man. You stick with your dark horse there.
Yo,
We'll see.
somebody's got to play down low. If Embiid's always at the 3-point line,
Yeah,
like,
that's
let him
true,
work
but-
on his post game.
Well, someone's got to hit a three between them, right? So I guess put the big guy back behind the
That's
3-point
right.
line.
I trust Embiid more than him, though.
Dark horse for me in the West, I will go with Nabil and say Houston as well. I think there's a lot of pressure there in that setting. I think D'Antoni's on the last legs of that contract as well. If they don't do it this year, that team will get broken apart. And we might not see kind of that run and gun offense that the 7 seconds or less or dribble of Harden. We might not see it much longer past this season. So I think their back is up against the wall to produce. And on the East, I will go with the Heat. I think they're solidly coached. Eric Spoelstra, people forget he is also won championships, has been in that final setting. Love Bam Bam Adebayo. I say Bam Bam, but Bam Adebayo, and also Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler. Very, very scary team. I can't go with Philly just because X's and O's. I will never trust Brett Brown ever in even a regular season game. I do not trust what he's going to bring to the table. So in the playoffs, I don't like his chances matched up against those upper echelon coaches. All right, guys. So great discussion as we covered off a ton of topics. We did a recap of the Raptors playoff run last year. We also talked about the current season and expectations of how we see the season playing out. Looks like the overall consensus is that there's not going to be an asterisk attached to whoever the champion is. I agree with that. I feel that every team is coming into a similar playing format and environment. It'll be interesting, and hopefully top players aren't sitting out. That will be the only kind of element that you can put it to it as an asterisk. But should be super exciting and looking forward to it. So thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Court. We hope you enjoyed episode 8. Thank you to my brothers here who joined us as well in terms of all their input and their insight as well. Don't forget to hit the red button in terms of subscribe. Follow us on Instagram as well in terms of Beyond the Court _podcast, and check out the various podcasting forums that we're at. So take care, be safe, stay blessed.
Fail.